This hate speech bill, and I use that term very, very lightly, hate speech, because it means absolutely nothing. Okay, normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill hate speech is awful. There is no doubt. But when governments seem to, and we've seen this over the last few years, be it in the UK, be it in Australia, be it in New Zealand, whenever governments start using words like hate speech, they don't mean actual, genuine hate. They just mean anything that will slightly offend anyone. Last week, the Australian government wanted to introduce a law that would ban publicly inciting hatred with a punishment of up to 5 years in jail. Now, that sounds great. Absolutely. I've covered this a million times. It sounds lovely. But when you dig into the details, you would be hit with the same punishment if you made a joke as someone who was genuinely hateful. And that's not okay. This is policing our speech, and I won't fucking stand for it. The critical...
Yeah, all right. So that's kind of like the first sort of point that I was saying, where I feel like there's no sort of like historic evidence that, you know, someone is going to take something like a joke and then they're going to, you know, start putting into like a criminal offense towards it. Like even with the hate speech stuff, like I know what he's talking about in terms of like if someone finds it offensive, then, you know, they can basically say, you know, they incited hate speech towards me. There has got like this is it's such a bad take on the law. Like for starters, the intent behind the law is to tackle anti-Semitism. You know, it is, you know, this is also before the vilification was in there too, right? It is quite clear when you read the text that they are targeting people who are using words, or they are protesting, or, you know, because also this is you know, what you say in a public place and stuff like that. It is quite clear that you have to show a degree of hate towards someone that a reasonable person would fear that their life was, you know, like that there was a safety concern, right? If you make a joke, okay, depending on the like how far you take in your body language and all these sort of things, just no one in their right mind is got, like, if you make just a funny joke, like, you know, just any sort of standard, like, let's say like a racial joke, right? If you say it, if someone gets offended, they're not going to take that as they're going to fear for their safety. Like, it's just, I don't understand, like, why this stretch of this stupid, like, oh, you know, now if you take a joke, you know, we're now going to, these hate speech laws, you know, they're going to basically lock us up for like 5 to 10 years or whatever it is. Like, it's just like, there has to be a realistic kind of, you know, analysis on it. Like, I feel like this argument is just so, like, I don't even like to engage with it, because it's just like, come on, man, like, no one's sitting there going, oh, you made a joke, I now fear for my life, and that would uphold in court. Like, that's just not reality. Like, that just doesn't happen. I know people are going to, like, you know, because I had it all through my TikTok and all through my YouTube. You're like, oh, you're not going to be able to say that. It's like, it's just not going to happen. Like, it's just, I don't...
Clause in that entire hate speech bill was this: it was immaterial whether or not it actually caused harm. Meaning, it didn't matter if it actually harmed anyone, hurt anyone, caused anyone to actually go through anything horrible. If you just said it, and you said it about a protected class, you'd be fucking facing prison. This could be applied.
No, like, that's like, you just don't, oh, you say something, oh, what did you say about them? Oh, do you feel offended? Yeah, I feel offended. Oh, okay. Do you feel like your life is at jeopardy? Yeah, because he said a pretty mean word. Like, he said something, you know, and I'm you know, it's about my race and ethnicity. Oh, okay, yeah, 5 years. Like, that's not what that law is designed to do, and it's not, that wouldn't get carried out that way. And I think you would find, I mean, like, oh man, like, I wish, like, some people who like genuine lawyers were to watch that. Like, I wonder what they actually think, if they really think, if anyone can, like, if anyone watches this and knows a lawyer or has a link to, like, a YouTube clip where they put this down, it's just, like, link it to me, and I want to see, like, an actual case scenario of what they think would happen. Like, give me a scenario of, you know, a Muslim and and a Jew are saying there, and then the Muslim makes a joke at the Jew, and then the Jew gets offended, and then basically tries to, like someone give a scenario of what they say to the lightest edge case of what they think would be like, oh yeah, no, I just made a joke, and then they would get locked up for 5 years. I want to know what someone's scenario is that they think that would get carried out, because this is taking like that really, really small edge, like it's taken the letter of the law to the very far extreme, and then making this like blanket assumption over the whole thing. Like it's just not what that's there for. Like, and I'm not saying it's like just to try and protect, like the vilification thing is out of the window anyway, but I'm just saying like it's quite clear that was the whole, like when you read it, like that's the whole intent behind it. That's how it'd be used. And like people are just getting so like overreaching with it.
To race, religion, sex, LGBTQIA plus protected people. This was a law that was based on feelings, and that is never a good thing. And if you posted it online, that would count as a public place and you could be charged. Now, originally, all the different sides of politics in Australia supported the bill other than the fringe members. The fringe members being One Nation, being independent senators, the ones that are gaining more and more votes every single day because people are sick of these fuckwits who run our country. There were senators like Matt Canavan who said it threatens the free speech in Australia. The opposition leader, Suzanne Lee, who is just a different human being, said it was half-baked and pretty unsalvageable. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I think is absolutely fantastic about what actually came of this was I think it was a grassroots effort. I don't think it was the power of the politicians that made this bill die in the fucking ass. I think it was so many people were so outraged that these pieces of shit decided that we need to have our fucking language controlled, that the government actually fucking listened to us. Hello, I've gone off a bit early. The fucking government. These pieces of shit. I know, honestly, I was so pumped about this bill being completely repelled. And when I wrote this video that we're watching right now, when I wrote it the other day, that was the news. And I go on in the video to talk about the fact that, yes, it will be watered down and they'll try and sneak it through and all this shit. But I didn't think they'd do it so quickly. I heard whispers last night that they were going to try to push it through right now as we are watching this video. But they've done it. They've passed a watered-down version of this hate speech bill in the lower house. It only had 7 votes against it. Now, when I talk about grassroots effort, I still agree with myself, which is fantastic, that we did do something. We were able to convince enough people in Parliament to actually make a change, and I think that is fantastic, but not enough. Not enough for them to go, you know what, we really do need a free speech amendment to our constitution. Not enough to make them go, you know what, we shouldn't really try to control what these people who elect us say. It is unfortunate. It's disgusting. It is just so far-reaching, so much control from these people that they want to play over all of our heads. It's sad.
Oh, I don't know how much more I can take of this, but like this whole like narrative around like free speech and like control. Oh man, fuck it. Like it annoys me because who actually feels like they can't say the things that they want to say? Who feels like they can't express themselves? Like, no, like I want to know. Unless like there's some cases that I don't know, right? And if you guys know something, then link it to me because I'm more than happy to read it. But from what I can see, like there's no serious cases of like people saying like, hey, I oppose this, and like, hey, Labor, like, man, if you go on X, you can see like you can read the most like savage stuff about Albanese and the Labor government. You can read the most savage stuff. I can. You just read so much, and then like people still think that you don't have free speech and that you don't have like, free political opinion. Like it baffles me that people like are under the assumption that we're like being like controlled to like some degree, and it just shits me. Like it just shits me that like we have so many freedoms to like think the way we want. We can express on social media. We can have our own like political debates. We actually do have the right to protest. I mean, like at the moment, it's a bit of a sensitive topic and stuff like that with the protests and that, but like you still can. And Australia has like so many of these like really good ways of like being protected and that. And then like you get these people like this guy and like, very, very similar that are basically being like, oh, now you won't be able to offend someone and that otherwise you're going to be, thrown in jail. Like, come on, give me a break. Like, you don't honestly think that if you offend someone at the pub through a joke, that you think like Albanese is going to come knock on your, Tony Burke is going to come knock on your door and like throw you in jail. Like, you are delusional if you think that is an actual reality here in Australia, because it's freaking not. Like, it's so dumb. Like, it is actually so dumb.
Maddening is what it is. The rest of this video is not null and void. In fact, I make some fantastic points, so I urge you to continue watching. Thankfully, it took a bit of damage on the way through, but it's still a long way from over, but I hope you will forgive me for not having up-to-date news. I am not a news provider. This video is going up at 4 p.m. and it's currently 3:46. So I'm going to go and put this in the fucking computer and upload it to YouTube. Can you believe that? Mate, there were so many posts about this. There was my YouTube video. There was YouTube videos from dozens of other people, Instagram posts from all these other creators, regular people just saying this is absolutely crazy. Look at the comment section on all of the posts from the mainstream news. They were turning off comments because people were like, this is fucking 1984. We cannot deal with this shit. This is not a good thing. And then, of course, there were the dipshits who were just like, this is so good. We've got to stop hate. Yes, of course we need to stop hate. Hate is not good. Hate is bad, but that's not what this shit is about. All right, it's all paved with good intentions, but at the end of the day, what this bill would have done was it would have made a metaphorical fucking gag right in your fucking gob and you wouldn't be able to say anything. They gave the public the ability to speak their mind of it. They gave them 72 hours for public submissions. 72 hours.
All right, so we're halfway through? I called this at the very, very start of the video that like the chances are that this guy and Topherfield, who we're going to listen to next, that a lot of their stuff is going to be, it's just going to be very, very strong rhetoric. It's going to be very strong narrative about like how much of a piece of shit the government is and yada, 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 which is like fair enough. Like if you don't like the Labor government and you think that they're doing things that don't align with like the way that you would prefer it, if you think opposition party has a better way of doing it, et cetera, you're free to think so, right? But like, use those as part of your argument. Don't just ramble and like don't show any evidence to why you think the way. Like this guy, I don't know why he actually thinks the way that he does. And he's been talking now for 6 minutes. Like does anyone else actually just sit there and go like, oh yeah, like he's right. Yeah, like, oh my God, he's right. He's right. And then go like, oh, why is he right? Oh, I don't know, because, he's saying it. And it's like, is that like how these people like sort of think? Like, and they have such a strong following. Like, I don't get it, man. Like, I don't know. It shits me. Like, sorry for the guys that are watching this. Like, I 100% agree. Like, I get 6 minutes into this stuff and I'm like, it's making me brain dead a little bit, but oh well.
Based on a bill that would...
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I 100% agree with him in terms of like it being rushed through Parliament. Like I do think that it, maybe like a week or 2 weeks. I think, that would have been better, especially for optics. But on the other hand, you did have everyone kicking and screaming ever since the start of the bond, like ever since December 14th when it happened. Like people were going nuts about like taking action, doing something, and like they wanted the Royal Commission, they wanted changes to the hate speech laws, like they wanted this, they wanted answers, and blah 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 blah. And like Albanese started off by like going, okay, we're gonna fight. Like if you want answers, then we're going to run the federal review, which is the Richardson review, and that is going to highlight any issues with like the institutions, like ASIO, the agencies, and we're going to be able to like make some changes there. We've got to wait for the coroner inquest, we've got to wait for the criminal investigation, and then once all they sort of unfold, like that's you go from there. Then like if the outputs from there mean that we need to go even further, then you got to go through a Royal Commission. But no, like everyone just lost their shit. And like, and like, again, I think I said this with Nathan last week, like people wanted answers. Like, that's fair enough. Like, if everyone wanted to, like, and Albanese probably could have done a better idea of going like, hey, this is the structure, this is what we're going to follow, this is the best. Maybe they could have said like all of that. And like they could have done 100 different ways, but like in terms of like controlling like the rhetoric and things like that, like there is a process. They've got to follow a process, and they were doing their best to like follow that process and converse it to the public and stuff like that. But like everyone wanted the Royal Commission. They dissed the federal review, the Richardson review. They wanted the hate speech laws, and then they like now it's rushed. Even like with the Royal Commission, like I called it in one of my videos. I said, I bet you if he ends up calling a Royal Commission, he'll state who's going to be doing the Royal Commission, and they won't like that. And that's exactly what happened with when they assigned the High Court judge or whoever it was. So like Julia, forgot her name, but like that's exactly what happened. And I was watching the lower house this morning for the debate, and no shit, like almost every single Liberal coalition MP was literally talking about the ASIO. How it met the threshold, and they should be doing this and should be doing that in terms of the ASIO agency, etc., etc. And I was just sitting there going like, well, hang on a second. That's exactly what the Richardson Review is there to do. And it's to assess those thresholds and to basically see like, how did these people like basically not meet the threshold, and how do these people end up getting the guns that they had, and yada, yada, yada. That's exactly what the Richardson Review is there for. And they completely slandered it, and like the whole public ended up slandering it because of the media narrative around like Royal Commission is going to get you all the answers. And it's like, well, hang on, the Royal Commission can't even access all the secret data that the Federal Review does. And it just baffled me that like they completely slandered the Richardson Review, saying it wasn't going to be enough, and then they want the Royal Commission. They got the Royal Commission, they complained about who was on the Royal Commission, and then they get to the debate today, and then they start talking about the very thing that the Richardson Review is there to basically find out. Like, do you not sort of see like how jumbled up all of that is? And I just like, the one thing that Albanese should have done is predicted that they were going to behave this way, and then actually like change his rhetoric throughout to basically, fill in those gaps. That's the only thing I can probably fault for like Albanese on all of that, is he probably should have seen that they were going to be shady about absolutely everything, and then just made sure that he was very, very transparent about it all, and actually helped educate the public in terms of like those processes. That's the only thing. Nobody has a right to free speech is a stupid slogan with oh mate. It's that's yeah, all right, I'm gonna go there, but like the free speech thing, this is what annoys me, because one of my mates, he's like a very big he's a real big Trumple. He drinks a lot of Republican, like he throws on Trump, right? And I'm not very big on Trump. And he always goes on about free speech. I'm like, mate, nobody actually has free speech. Like, you can't go onto a plane and start shouting bomb. You can't do that, like, even in most places, right? You can't go around shouting bomb. And even in like the US, you can't actually go around and start saying things about Trump now. Otherwise, he actually starts to, he's been attacking like, what was the news agency? Like he basically doesn't give time to certain news media outlets, depending on what they say, right? And he's tried to sue them too. So like all free speech from like that aspect is completely out of the window. Same with Australia. You don't have free speech. Okay, if you are such a free speech advocate, I bet you $1,000 that if you go into most places and shout like bomb or racial slurs or something or the other, you're not like, it's just not acceptable, right? Free speech is such a rat shit sort of thing to talk about, because you can't even go like and say like threatening things to people, because then you're going to be imposing on their rights and their safety and things like that. So like, how far do you want to take the free speech narrative? Like, that's that might be a bit far in terms of that, but like that's what I mean by like free speech. Like, you can have like free speech in terms of like political ideologies. You can like disagree with people. You can have like strong beliefs and things like that, as long as you're not causing harm, as long as you're not causing distress. Like, the whole basis behind a lot of the hate speech stuff is like, it's kind of like no fucking, it's like that's the common sense that most people are talking about. It's like, of course you can't go up to someone and say something really extreme like, hey, I'm gonna assert this kind of like violent act on you and blah 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 blah. Like, of course you can't say that. You don't need a law to be able to say that. Like to some degree you don't need a law. I mean, people are going to push the edges, but like there is like, but then like, what, you're going to turn and be like, oh, well, I have the free speech, like I should be allowed to say that out loud. Oh, I was only joking, like blah blah blah. It's like, no, dude, like that's hectic. That's what these laws are basically trying to do, is basically try and bring people into like some sort of like normative behavior, which is like that, you know, on a normal distribution curve, that, you know, 1 or 2 standard deviations outwards, that all those people, you know, behave similarly, and everyone agrees like, hey, this is okay, and these outliers are not okay. You're gonna get 5 years, right? But these people think that like the normal behavior of like making a joke to people is like this like 3 standard deviation kind of like behavior. Like, it's just not even. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. That was a fuck. That triggered me.
Change everything about this country, potentially. And it's important to note this, that the Australian government right now, run by Anthony Albanese and the Labor Party, probably wouldn't have gone too hard after everybody. But once something is a law, it remains law for fucking ever. And if you allow people to implement laws that people may in the future abuse, then you're a fucking idiot. So the bill's not going ahead. It didn't get the support that the government wanted. And the Greens Party, the far left party, they were a big part in this. Now, did they listen to the Australian public and say, you know, we can't do this. This is a massive infringement on their free speech. This is the thought police. This is a lot like a novel that was written, I think, was it the 50s that Orwell wrote that? They said that there wasn't enough protections for LGBTQ. Okay, that's not I'm not going to edit that out. There wasn't enough protections for the LGBTQIA plus peoples. Okay, which means basically this. Oh, we just need to put more protected people in there. This idea of protected classes is just fucking bananas. You know who needs to be protected from words? Fucking no one. Who, like, okay, what grown fucking adult needs to be protected from words by laws which punish the people who use those words with jail? Are you serious? Are you fucking serious? What do you need protection from? They're words.
This is where the rhetoric around this sort of stuff gets lost, because when he's sort of like, oh, they're just words, they're just... We're not talking about like just offending people. We're talking about the cases where people are inciting like clear hate towards a group of people such that those people feel that their safety is at jeopardy. And there are like legitimate cases where those are sort of like real things, and like, you know, yeah, you might not like. I don't agree with including the LGBTQ plus thing into that. Like, I think the anti-Semitism, hate speech laws, for now should be strictly kind of trying to address the race and ethnicity sort of thing, and just getting to the crux of the Bondi shooting, because I feel like at the moment, you know, that is the hot topic and that is the real risk in Australia. So I feel like we should be addressing that first. Okay. Now, what he just said before about, you know, once that law, then, you know, yada, 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 like you can make amendments, you can make changes. Like it's happened before. Like, it's just, I don't like when people are like, oh, you know, once it's law, then it's set in stone forever. Like, no, it's not like it's not like constitution. It's not a constitutional change. It's just a regulation, right? So you can make amendments, you can make changes. That happens all the time, et cetera, et cetera. But it still has to go through Parliament and stuff like that. I think like watching today's debate through the lower house, I thought it was really good that there was some electorate, some MPs that came out and they spoke on behalf of their electorate and their community, and they did a really good job at basically representing their electorate. And I even saw like some Liberal MPs actually support the bill, even though like the coalition as a whole and the Liberals as a whole like were meant to like oppose everything. And I saw some of them support it, which I think was really good, because it showed that they went out to the electorate, they spoke to the people, and that they came back and they still basically stuck to their electorate. Now, when it comes to election time and you engage with your MPs during your electorate, and I think this is something that like we, as if we're going to step into the political commentary space, I think we've got to really, really sort of reassure or make sure that anyone that's watching and they are voters and they want to see how their vote matters, this is where it matters most. I think voting for an electorate, like your electorate MP, who actually listens to you and actually then goes to Parliament and during these debates actually takes on board what you say and then represents you in those cases, even if it goes against what their party's sort of like main argument is, I think, holy shit, man, like that says a lot. And I think I kind of got the chills today on that, because in my electorate, I voted for an independent, then I voted for Green, then I voted for Labor, and I voted for Liberal last. And the Liberal, like where I live, it's a blue electorate. Like they've won like the last 10 or something. Like so, so it was obviously like a Liberal one again, and he was a new guy. And today, listening to him speak on like during the debate, he actually, everything he sort of said almost opposed what the actual Liberal Party supports. But he said, like, he went out to lecture, like, listen to the community, and this is what they think, and blah, blah, therefore I'm actually going to support it. But I still think that, we should revisit it as time goes on. And I think that was like, that changed my perspective on that MP. And I think people should listen to these things, because it does make a huge difference, right? And it made a huge difference in my mind then. Sorry if I'm rambling, but like I feel like people should understand that, especially if you want to know that your vote matters. This is exactly where it matters. And I think having your electorate speak for you on behalf of like in these debates, I don't know. I just think that's really cool. I don't know what you guys in chat think, but like have you guys ever had, or like did your current electorate or who you voted for in your federal election, like, are they actually speaking on behalf of you? Do you feel like that they align with what you say? Did they even win? Because I think it's man, like that just, it really kind of, like I said, like it gave me the chills a little bit. And I just feel like these kind of people that speak on these, like this guy, Isaac, has no clue about any of this. And it just baffles me. I just feel like that should be the conversations around Australian politics at a federal level a bit more. That's just me though.
You look at what happens in school playgrounds. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words won't hurt me, or whatever the fucking saying is. Just implement that in society and we'll all be... Oh, fuck, man. Sorry. Every time he talks, I just think of like 50 million things I want to like object to what he says. Like, you can say sticks and stones, blah, 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 but like, at the end of the day, just don't say shit that like people feel like their lives, at like, I don't know about you guys, like, but do you actually think that
Like, I just feel like if someone says a joke about you, do you actually feel like your life is at threat, or like that your safety is a concern? Or like, do you really sort of need some sort of like really harsh, direct kind of like hateful, body language, like assertion of like, physical dominance? So like I feel like there's like lots of things that need to like fall into place in order for you to actually go like, oh shit, I'm actually in a little bit of like, am I about to get punched in the face? Am I about to get stabbed? Like these are the sort of things that like these people are sort of thinking that a joke does, but like it just doesn't. Like,
sweet. If you hear language you don't like, okay, don't like it. That's the end of it. Unless you're calling for direct harm, fucking get over it. There's a lot that is still unclear. But what I do know for certain is they put so much effort into this bill that it won't be dead. They'll bring it back. They'll soften it up. They'll introduce clauses from this bill, hide them in other bills. It'll be nefarious, it'll be gross, but they'll get it through. They might soften up the language just a touch, just to keep everybody the fuck quiet. This consistent and constant and deliberate attack on free speech that is happening throughout not just Australia, but the Commonwealth, New Zealand, the UK, it just seems orchestrated, doesn't it? It just seems gross. It's fucking stinks, right? And if you smell fire, there's probably fire. Something is happening here. I don't understand why these people seem to just spend so much time attacking speech, attacking free speech. I cannot wrap my head around how these people think this is a good idea. And I know that in politics, you want to get re-elected and it's going to happen in 4 years. You got to think about it all the time. How can they make these calls? How can they bring this shit up and then think they're going to get re-elected? And who the fuck are these people voting for them? I cannot... Oh, and this does my fucking head in Australia. The left-wing party and the right-wing party are both as bad as each other when it comes to fucking free speech. And that is absolutely just sad, is what it is. It is just sad. In the COVID years, the right-wing party was in charge here. And
I'd like to know what these guys think that, like, what free speech rights do they think that they've lost? Or, like, what... You know what I mean? Like, I kind of think back on my life, like 5 years, 10 years. Like, I don't think I've ever felt once in my life, unless I've gone to another country, that I feel like I've been oppressed, or like some law or something has changed where my life has drastically gone like, oh shit, I used to be able to do that, but now I can't. Does anyone else like, and this is the, fuck, I hope he touches on this because he's going to start talking about COVID. But, oh man, this is like, if you are arguing with anyone about like this conspiracy theory around free speech or anything like that, ask them what their position was during COVID. Because this is like my go-to about like all of this sort of bollocks is... You know, oh, what was your position on COVID? And it's like, oh yeah, vaccines, like, that they try to control us then with like the digital ID and the, like, you had to scan like the QR codes to get in everywhere. Oh, okay. Do you have to do that now? Oh, no. But like, it's like, okay. Oh, well, I didn't want to like, and then back then it was like, oh, I didn't want to get the vaccines because, the 5G towers and they're going to like try and like the microchips and, all this sort of bollock. I'm like, these are the same people that thought that there was microchips in the COVID vaccines, and then they were going to activate the 5G towers, and then they were going to control and manipulate the world and blah, 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 blah. And then like it's even dumber because these people are probably also like anti-democrats, like if we look at the US, these same people are probably like anti-democrats, pro-Trumpers, but like Biden was like during COVID, and then now it's Trump, and they're probably more manipulated during that sort of era. And I just feel like these people are kind of adopting that US politics sort of like, or that US sort of line of thinking. Like, how can you think that we're under all this governmental like control and surveillance, like just behind like this free, like this one like little hate speech law that is meant to target anti-Semitism around race and ethnicity? It's so dumb. Italal says they fail to understand the game is player on black and white squares, no green squares, no grey ones. You'll incur the wrath of both sides if you don't choose an obvious position. Yeah, 100%. It's like you do have to sort of like understand all play. Like I think like within Australian politics, and I hope like this is one goal that I can try and achieve, like with like the little, you know, sort of like influence I even have on anyone, is like understand the two major parties, like, or like the coalition. You got the two major parties, and then understand that like they kind of have like this battle in the lower house in trying to get the trying to get bills passed and trying to have these debates, right? And then they've also got like the independents and the minor parties in the background. And basically when it comes to like different types of bills that they want to pass, they try and get those like little voters here and there. That way they can sort of like get the majority, and they can kind of like swindle some like bill through. And then it gets to the Senate, and then the Senate is like its own like kettle of fish as well. Like the Senate has so much bloody power in any sort of like law that gets passed, that like this is where like your One Nation is and stuff like that. Like, and your Greens typically have like a really good presence in the Senate as well. They're like more of like independents and stuff like that. Like the Senate can like block bills, and then it gets back and then it goes forward and blah blah blah. Like this is one of the best things about Australian politics and Australian government, is that we have this system, and it's very different to like the US, and it's you know, a little different to the UK as well, but like it's more similar to the UK. But like we are so blessed to have this sort of system, because then we can't have like, you know, a Trump come in and basically just start slamming like these like EOs through and like trying to like, you know, rush these you know, like change the law in that way and make government operate on a different level, like, and just completely disregard Congress and blah, blah, blah. Like, we're so blessed to be able to have this sort of like, you can't have that sort of system, right? And I just feel like if you don't understand how all of that works, then you shouldn't have a very strong opinion about anything in Australian politics. Maybe that's like just me. I don't know if you guys agree. You know, tell me I'm wrong or tell me I'm right, like whatever. But like, I feel like until you understand those like fundamentals, I think that, you know, you should maybe learn about that sort of stuff first before you start having these very, very strong opinions about, you know, parliament figures and stuff like that. Like that's my, you know, and same with the voting. Like I feel like preferential voting should be taught more vigorously in schools. Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, agree.
And they did exactly the same things. Free speech was a second thought. They were trying to control everything you said, everything you thought, everything you watched, everything you heard. And this is exactly the same that's happening with the left-wing party. So we as Australians are fucking screwed. That's where we're at. And it goes further, because it's not just us now, adults, people who are interested in politics or at least care about what the fuck's going on. It's happening to the kids too. You see, with the under-16s social media ban bill that happened in Australia, where they banned social media for all kids under the age of 16, except for Blue Sky, because it's a far left-leaning fucking cult. I don't get any, whatever. That's just, I've talked about it before. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. But this indoctrinates kids into one way of thinking. How does it do that? Well, it doesn't allow them to venture out on social media and find alternative news providers. So the news providers they get are, well, mainstream. And the mainstream news providers, as we all know, are fucking full of shit. And
fuck me. I think this might be the only video I watch of this guy. I don't know about you. I don't know any sort of like 16 or under. I know all of my friends that was 16 and under, like growing up, no one gave a shit about the news, man. Like, Australian politics isn't even interesting up, like, it's not even interesting up to like, so you have to start like dealing with like mortgages and taxes, and you still like when you learn your taxes, and you know you start trying to like do all that sort of stuff, which you don't end up doing until like, well, most people, all right, like you know, I'm sure there's some young bucks out there that, you know, love to, you know, understand politics and stuff like that, and 100% like there should be more people, but like under 16, No one's watching like mainstream media and getting indoctrinated into like left wing, right wing, this and that. Like, they don't give a crap, man. Like, they're playing video games, they're playing with shit outside. Like, you know, they're trying to get their first girlfriend. Girls are trying to understand like how to make boys, you know, hang around. Like, I'm a full supporter of this under social. Like, if you guys know my content, I'm a full supporter of the social media ban. And I think there's just the biggest hypocrisy around people, like the amount of like oldies that I know, like you'll pull up to lights and I'll be like, oh, you know, oh yeah, watch out for the pedestrian crossing. It'll be like 4 teenagers or like, you know, young kids. They're walking across the road and they're all like basically looking at their phone crossing the road. And then like you hear like the older like boomer or whatever, and they're like, oh, you know, they shouldn't even be on their phones, you know, pay attention or blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, now there's under 16 social media ban. Oh no, now they're trying to take away free speech. It's like, mate, don't you want them off the phones? Like, don't you want them like actually engaging with the real world? Like, you don't want them sucked into their phone. You don't want them sucked into TikTok. Like, if anything, the social media, like the alternative sort of like, you know, alternative like media space is so like, it's more corrupt than the actual, I would say, than the mainstream media is. Like, it's like, yeah, all right, I'm going to stop with that. It's so dumb. Like, it's so dumb.
The government is celebrating this. Just last week, they announced at a big press conference they were so happy that 4.7 million social media accounts were deleted or deactivated that were operated by kids. And Albanese called it a source of pride. Wow.
Yep.
This government institutionalized surveillance is fucking wild. Now, of course,
that's a stupid statement in itself. Surveillance. Oh, yeah, that's surveillance. Mate, they're off the apps. That's less surveillance. No? Now you haven't got like everything that they click on, their data is being sent to like some massive data center where like some algorithm is going to be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, they're obviously into like snowboards today. Like, let's start feeding them like snowboard stuff. Oh, look, they're into like this new video game. Let's start sending them like all this sort of stuff. Oh, look at them. They're into like this new cafe. Like, let's start syncing them with like different like coffee makers and shit. Like, you talk about like surveillance, mate, like social media is the most, like, wasn't there like all this stuff with like Facebook, like listening to like reading people's like text messages and all that sort of stuff? That's heavy surveillance by like Meta and all that sort of crap. Now they don't have that. What, like, does anyone sort of see like the double standard? Like, is it just me that sort of sees this shit? Like, I don't understand like how you can be so against that stuff, yet at the same time like spit it as if the government are doing, oh man, like.
The problem with this isn't so much that these kids, you know, don't get access to fucking Instagram. It's what comes of it, okay? Digital IDs, the ability to say, hey, you can and cannot use the internet. All of these different...
There's the conspiracy stuff. Oh, I know your digital ID. That doesn't exist yet. And this is another thing as well, right? This is what really shit me about the COVID stuff as well, is you had so many people like Joe Rogan, you had all these like really big influencers and blah, 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 who were going nuts about like ivermectin, and they were saying like all this stuff about the how, you know, people are going to start dropping dead, and, you know, there's going to be these 5G towers, and there's going to be all this like government control and blah blah. They were allowed to say all of that stuff with zero consequence, right? This is the sort of same stuff where it's like there's all this digital ID and all this like surveillance of kids and blah, blah, blah. There's all this sort of stuff going on. They can say that stuff. They can scare the shit out of everyone. They can influence people's like political perspectives. They can influence the way that people like, you know, go on about their rhetoric and blah, blah, blah. And they'll get zero consequence. I bet you in a year's time, if there's like no digital ID, if there's no, like if the social media ban, right? If you were to grade like kids' happiness or like kids like engagement with the real world or like kids' grades. I think I did a video on this, like seeing like kids' grades. Like if all of that sort of stuff was to go up, none of these people would turn around and be like, oh yeah, shit, I was wrong. It was actually pretty good. Like, oh yeah, I take back everything I said about all the conspiracy stuff and blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, none of them would do that. But like, if the social media ban was to fail, or in some aspect, some variable where it starts dropping off, everyone would be like, oh, Albanese, they need to apologize. Oh, they owe everyone a very, very deep, and and then they would have to bend over backwards and basically apologize and do this sort of stuff, and it'd be like, oh no, it wasn't enough. Like Susan Lay today, oh, Albanese still hasn't apologized about the Bondi shooting. He still hasn't taken accountability. Mate, that dude has said I'm sorry that many bloody times about it, and he says, as Prime Minister, as the Labor government, like, I take accountability that it happens like during my watch and blah blah blah. Like, he said that like 20 times, and she still craps on about this line about like how he hasn't even taken account. Like, this is sort of like, okay, man, I'm getting triggered tonight. All right, anyway, this dude's annoying me.
Things that we know that we're
all right. Topherfield, what do you guys think of Isaac Butterfield? Give him a like, because obviously he's sort of watching I'll tag his video and stuff like that. You guys can sort of see his other stuff and see what let me know what you think. But yeah, I think that'll probably be the one and only. All right, Topherfield. I actually haven't seen this Joel Jamal dude. Do you guys know him? Joel Jamal. Yeah, let's see how this goes.
This whole bill is a piece of crap. Only 2% of the bill was taken out. And the mainstream media, they're showing their IQ here, maybe deliberately, maybe not deliberately, just as mankind rebels against God. Governments tried to replace God, and they think that people aren't going to try and rebel against them. I mean, who do they think they are? Even
It's going to happen from here. Well, I thought no one better to bring on than Joel Jamal. He's no stranger to the Topher Project. He runs Turning Point Australia, and he joins me now. Joel, thank you so much for making time at very short notice, I must say, for the Topher Project.
You too, Topher. Happy New Year, mate.
No, Happy New Year. I brought you on because I saw a piece of content that you put out. You're clearly across a lot more of the details of what's happening in Canberra. You know how cynical this game is, just as much, if not more, than what I do. Can you bring us up to speed? Firstly, the bill itself, everyone knows about it. We probably don't need to talk about that. But originally it was put forward as an omnibus bill. Can we talk for a second about why they would group such different legislation? There's hate speech, there's hate groups, then there's firearms law. Why would they ram all that together in a single bill in the first place?
Yeah, look, it's hard to say in terms of why, to read their hearts, but some have been saying it's been a phenomenal strategy by Labor in order to get things through, and then you take away the things that you don't really care about. It might have been a strategic thing, but the omnibus package, as you've rightly pointed out, is often something where they're trying to put a whole bunch of hidden things in a massive bill. Again, guys, this bill covers immigration law, gun law, customs law, hate group law, religious and ethnic vilification law. I mean, there's a lot of different laws that this would be amended to. So Albanese is clearly, he doesn't think much of the Australian people. He thinks that Aussies, they don't have time to keep track. But mate, for you, Albo, we'll make time.
I'm sorry to interrupt my interview with Joel Jamal of Turning Point Australia. Please do check out the link in the description of this video where you'll find a tool that he's developed. He talks about it later in this interview if you'd like to know more, but make sure you use that link and help him with his campaign to try and put some pressure on the politicians before they stab us in the back once again. My name's Topherfield. This is the Topher Project, and I'm 100% viewer supported. I rely on you guys to be able to do interviews like this, bring you information like this, and to help to corral support around campaigns like the one that Turning Point Australia are running right now. So if you appreciate what I'm doing my best to be a voice of reason in a world gone mad, then please buy me a coffee via the button that you'll find at topherfield.com. While you're there, check out the shop where you're going to find my DVDs, my best-selling books, multi-award-winning DVDs, my t-shirts, my hoodies, my caps, and my stickers. All of it's there at topherfield.com on the shop tab, and everything you buy is going to help me to keep bringing you literally hundreds more videos just like this one in 2026. So without further ado, let's get back to my interview with Joel Jamal from Turning Point Australia.
Turning Point Australia, that's not like an affiliation with Turning Point America, like the Charlie Kirk stuff, is it? He hasn't put any links.
Well, then, of course, we've had the news of this supposed back down. Obviously, One Nation, a bunch of others, including many LNP senators in particular, came out saying, hey, we're not going to support this. We're not voting for this. There was some question mark initially over the LNP as an organisation. Then, of course, the big question was the Greens. Are they going to support this? Finally, the Greens came out and said we can't support it in its current form. They were suggesting it needed to go even further. And so that forced Albanese to change tack. Now, that's been trumpeted as a back down, but that's not quite true, is it?
Not at all. Not at all. Only 3 pages, so 2% of the bill. This whole bill is a piece of crap. Only 2% of the bill was taken out, and the mainstream media, they're showing their IQ here, maybe deliberately, maybe not deliberately, but they're showing the fact that, oh, Albanese, he's back down, he's this and that. This is not a back down, guys. He took maybe a toothpick out of this particular, cesspit of a bill. This bill is going ahead in a new form. They've taken these 3 pages out. they're basically splitting the bill in half. And the reason for that is they've got the Greens party that don't want the whole bill. They just want to vote for the gun stuff. So there's 5 sections in this particular bill. Anthony Albanese on Saturday announced that section 3 and 4, which is to do with firearms legislation, customs import of those firearms, that sort of legislation,
and
that's all going together. Absolutely. And that's all going together. So Albanese is going to get that passed with the Greens votes in the Senate. But for the other parts of the bill, Schedule 1, 2, and 5, the Greens don't want that. So Albanese is trying to court and bully the weak Liberals to actually come across. And don't think they won't vote for it, guys. Julian Leeser's been trying to whip votes for Labor over the weekend. They are basically trying to get the Liberals in the Senate to pass it, which is why we built this emailing tool to try and lobby the Liberals to say, hey, don't you dare. I can see what you might do tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to come to how people can find Turning Point Australia and all of the amazing work that you do, Joel, in just a moment. I want to talk about the cynicism of this politics. First, he uses an omnibus.
This is like... I think that like there is a bit of an element of truth around like, you know, putting everything in the one bill. But like hearing how the Labor government and Albanese sort of presented it today in front of Parliament is they address it as there's the motivation and then the method. So the motivation is the anti-Semitism part. And then the the method is the gun laws, right? And when it comes to the immigration stuff, man, like, it surprises me with how much people go on about how much they want, like, more migrants deported, and then they all oppose the immigration side of the bill, right? I still think like when I read through it, my only part with like the immigration part of the bill is the part about like how the Minister of Home Affairs can basically start like deporting people without any sort of, you know, well, he can hang on, what was it? Oh, no, that was about the hate groups, actually. My apologies, scrap that. All right, circle back. I 100% agree with like the immigration stuff. Like the fact that like the Home Affairs Minister now has more powers to be able to like deport people on like those more of like those edge cases around like hate crime stuff like that. I thought that was like, who wouldn't? Like, I don't understand like how many people support the trying to do something about immigration and then they like hate that part of it. I've seen so much crap from Topherfield around immigration, and then now he's slandering the immigration part of that bill. Like, that's so freaking hypocritical. Like, it just, to me, that means that like they're bad faith. Like, they're all bad faith. They actually don't really care about making a difference. What they really care about is just opposing whatever the government is doing. I am pretty supportive of what, like, how the current government is doing, but I can also point out some things that they're not doing well, right? I've pointed out some bad things that the Labor government has been doing during this Bondi thing, right? I've said them in this whole video. Like, I think they could have done it better with like being more transparent around the process. They could have done it better, like addressing the public. Albanese probably could have been better, like in terms of like, instead of like just showing his like sort of remorse and stuff like that, it could have been a little bit more emotional on camera. Should have, like, all this sort of stuff. Even like to the net zero thing, like they could be a little bit more like addressing, okay, like their, you know, the implementation of like the rewiring the nation, maybe like the actual like those sort of costs. That maybe they're a little bit more like flexible around like there's some stuff around net zero, like the rollout, that is actually a really good debate, but they're kind of not talking about it. So like I think they should be. So like, oh man, like immigration, they should be harder on immigration. 1000%. They should be harder on the housing situation. They should be harder on these sort of things. I can criticize that on Labor government, but I can also say like more about supporting them. These guys, however, they just say the things that they don't like. What is it that they actually like that the government's doing? Do they like anything about the Medicare? Do they like anything about student HECS? Do they like anything about, like, you know, how, like, some degree of housing? Like, I don't know what it is, but surely there is something that they must agree with. in terms of the current government. You can't just say like they're doing everything wrong. And the reason why you can't say that they're doing everything wrong is because you can still go outside. You can still go to like the cafe. You can still live your normal life. You're not getting like screwed over, right? And it's there has to be more to this than just that. So, yeah.
This bill where he puts it all in one, trying to force people to support the whole thing. And one of the reasons they do that, as you alluded to before, is it gives them a weapon with which to attack the opponents, because they can't win. If they support the bill, well, then they can be attacked because they supported these things. If they don't support the bill, they can be attacked because they didn't support these other things over here. And by grouping them together, that's the strategy. Now, by splitting them, he's trying to get one through with the support of the Greens and another through with the support of the Labor light end of the Liberal Party. There's a funny thing happening, though, Joel. I've been in this game for 16 years. You've been in this game for a bit less time, but certainly long enough. You've watched this play out over time. The apathy of the Australian people is literally world famous. We literally pride ourselves on it. But I sense that that's shifting. We're seeing some interesting results in the polls for One Nation. The people saying they're going to vote in a direction that, frankly, I wouldn't have thought was going to happen. We're seeing young people really waking up. I've just finished an interview with Mia Schlicht from the IPA talking about young people's support for Australia Day on January 26th, going to record levels, and in fact, Gen Z leading the way in their vocal support for Australia Day being on January 26th. Are we watching a turning point here? Are Australians beginning to care and beginning to throw off some of that apathy and starting to pay attention?
100%. I mean,
like that was completely like. He mentioned that Mia Schmidt from IPA. Like when I was like doing all the net zero sort of stuff a few months or 4 or so months ago, whatever, they kept saying that they've got all this like data around like all these people that don't approve of net zero, and they've got like all these surveys and all this data set behind like how bad net zero is and that. But there's no report that's actually been come out of that. Like there's just been like a few interviews of her like going through some like rural towns, just basically doing some like speaking stuff. Like the IPA on this sort of stuff, like they're just a very, very strong rhetoric. So like when they sort of start referencing like, the IPA are basically saying the Gen Z or like the younger voters are doing this and that, like it's very, very, it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're all cherry picked. Like the younger voters came out and voted, like most of them voted, like that's why Labor got back in, because the younger voters resonated more with what Labor was saying. And you can basically go on to say, One Nation support is probably more younger voters too. I don't think so. I still think younger voters are going to go with Labor. I think younger voters are going to support things like cheaper student debt. I think they're going to go towards more like more around home affordability and that sort of stuff. I think One Nation has just got a very, very heavy rhetoric around immigration at the moment and nothing else. So I don't sort of like the sort of intuition pumping around that.
I mean, the polls have been trending this way for some time. So at the last federal election, the way the voting went was a third for Labor, a third for the coalition, Liberal National, and then a third for minor left-wing and right-wing parties. That is now shifted. It's almost a 50-50 split, Labor and Liberal in one side, and then the minor parties on the other side in the other 50%. Mm-hmm. The polling just came out last night. This is from The Australian, basically saying that it's 53% Labor and Liberal combined, with One Nation out competing. 53%, Toph. I mean, you know what this means here. This is the flipping of the coin. And we've got the coalition on 21% being beaten by One Nation for the first time ever, coming in at 22%. Now, I had my doubts. I had my doubts about previous polling last month. There were some weird things going on with the polls, but this right here is a credible poll, and it was hilarious this morning on Sunrise watching the Liberals and the Nationals as well as Labor trying to just sort of say, oh yeah, there's a lot of fluctuation after a national tragedy like this. It's like, no.
So it shits me, like when they start saying like, oh, it's hilarious. Oh, it's hilarious that, it's not. What you're witnessing with the coalition is not good in any way. And you can see it today, even with like the debate on the debate on the anti-Semitism bill and stuff like that. Like we need that balance of power. We need the coalition there. We need a strong, like Labor has like this very, very strong majority, and you need that strong coalition leadership and the strong coalition working together with the Nats and stuff like that, like to balance it out. The fact that One Nation are getting all of this sort of attention, I don't think it says a lot. To me, it says more that people don't understand how Australian government actually work. I think it's turning into a bit more of like a populist sort of thing. And I kind of always say this, like, and I use like US as an example quite a lot. And I think it's because a lot of Australians consume a lot of US media, particularly through like socials, entertainment, et cetera, and the whole like Trump administration is like, it's like a Netflix like series that just keeps happening, right? That stuff is just so entertaining for an Australian because we're not directly not 100% directly affected, but like Australians can watch that and kind of get into politics through watching the Trump administration and what's going on in the US. And then I think they kind of apply that to Australian politics when like we work in a very, very different system. And so that's why I think people are kind of, they're comparing Trump to like maybe a Pauline Hanson and going, we're going to vote One Nation because of Pauline Hanson. And then that becomes a bit more of like a populist kind of vote. Like, I don't think people are voting for One Nation. I think they're voting for Pauline Hanson. Whereas I think the people that are voting for the coalition or Labor, traditionally, they're voting for like generally what the party values are like, and they know more about like the people that are in those parties and things like that. That's my take on it. Like I would bet that if you ask all those people that voted One Nation, hey, what's your number one policy that you agree with One Nation? And like what do you think that they will do, like as soon if they were to get into government, which like it's that won't even happen anyway, but like it's like what do you think they're going to do? Do you think that they're going to be able to even pass a bill? Like Pauline Hanson to become like prime minister, if she was the one that was to become prime minister out of that party, she has to get confidence in the lower house to even be, assigned as prime minister. Like I don't even think she doesn't have like a lot of respect with a lot of the other MPs and stuff like in parliament. So like there's so much more to go into it, and I don't think that people actually understand that sort of side of it. That's why I think it's a bit more of like a popularity contest in that instance.
People aren't stupid.
This is a continuation of a very well-entrenched trend that was already underway before the Bondi shooting. Now, the poll that you mentioned that I also treated with some caution was the Demos AU poll. It was the first one to come out after the Bondi shooting, so it deserved some attention, but it's not one that I usually give a lot of credence to. It put Liberal Party and the Liberal National Coalition and One Nation each on 23%, which was the highest result for One Nation up to that moment in time. And certainly having had the Oz poll come out now, giving a similar figure to One Nation, 22%, whatever that was, and actually putting the LNP lower, I think that really does confirm that this trend is very much on. And we're witnessing this happen in so many different ways, Joel. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I just mentioned the IPA's polling around Australia Day. The support for Australia Day is up 13 percentage points in just 2 years and is now well into the 70% range, over 80% for Gen Z. Support Australia Day on January 26th. We're watching remarkably low numbers as compared to a few years ago of American university students identifying as non-binary. Of course, famously, companies that used to put the rainbow flag all over their insignias all over social media, except for in the Middle East, every time we got to Pride Month. Of course, that used to be a feature of the year every single year, and now it's kind of gone. Pronouns in email signatures are just quietly disappearing and just being forgotten. Oh, no, we never did that. We never fell for any of that nonsense. What's happening? What are we watching happen here in Australia and around the world?
Well, look, just as mankind rebels against God, governments tried to replace God, and they think that people aren't going to try and rebel against them. I mean, who do they think they are? Even they rebel against God. And so, look, this is the dominant culture basically having its comeuppance. Gen Z is more conservative than their grandparents, basically. That's what we're seeing. They don't like the woke stuff. As you said to me in the first episode of the Ark, kids are growing out mullets just to show that they're not gay. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with being gay, but when you shove it down people's throats, that's where the kids are like, no, I want to be cool. I want to do the rosary. Right. Like, I want to. Right. I never thought I'd see it. People are flooding churches like mine with, Bishop Murray Orthodox churches. They're going to Catholic churches. Especially in the wake of the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, people are going back to church because they're like, no, not this left-wing rule of the world. And so, mate, it's very encouraging. I didn't think we were going to see this for some time, to be honest.
Well, this sets up the collision that I've been discussing for a couple of years now. I sensed this shift was on pretty much coming out of COVID. It was already evident. I think it would have happened anyway, but it might have taken another 5-10 years to get there. But I think COVID really put this on steroids. I believe we're seeing the countercultural.
I actually saw Katter's speech on the debate today. Oh man, he was actually really entertaining to watch. But I didn't know that he was like. Maybe I just haven't spent too much time looking at him. I probably should, being from Queensland. But like Bob Katter is like 100% like pro. he is 100% pro right to bear arms. And I was like, hang on a second. And he tried to make the argument that Australia would be more safer if we had the right to bear arms. He tried to make the argument that the best way to deal with people with guns is for everyone to hold guns too. And I was like, hang on a second. I don't think One Nation support that. So I don't know. I wouldn't suspect that Bob Katter supports One Nation. Let's have a little. Does Bob Katter? What's Bob Katter's opinion of One Nation? Let's go to IAMWays. Let's see what these guys say. So Bob Katter's opinion of One Nation is currently strained due to a falling out over electoral preference deals. Despite historical cooperation on some issues, he and his party, Katter's Australian Party, have recently criticised One Nation for preferencing the Liberal National Party over KAP candidates, viewing it as a potato on the... what's the source on that? Okay. So this is of late last year. The LNP, so that's going to be of a that's more of a state thing, I'd say. KP and One Nation compete for a similar voter base, particularly in the regional Queensland. And Katter has previously stated that One Nation's political troubles have been a gain for his own party. Yeah. The two parties share some common ground on issues like gun laws, a focus on regional Australia, and certain stances of immigration. Yeah. Well, I know that I know that Bob Katter was at the Australia marches, and I assume that he will be there again next Monday, I think is when the next lot of marches are, next Monday. I might even pin that down to see, if I end up chatting with Scott Challen before on live stream before the March for Australia, I might actually ask him what the sort of dynamics are between those two, if they actually cross paths or not. Yeah, but if you get a chance, 100% watch his speech today regarding the gun reform, because he blows up. He's a classic. But yeah.
Swing to the sexual revolution of the 1960s. I believe that this is literally, we are living through a cultural revolution of that magnitude right now. But that sets up a really interesting collision, because we're seeing Gen Z, like you said, they're more conservative than their grandparents. They're looking at their parents and saying, I don't want what you've got, the divorce, the family breakdown, the meaninglessness. They're looking at their grandparents and they're still not satisfied. They're actually reaching deeper into the past. That's why the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, etc., are doing so well right now. It's because these people are looking for something that has survived the test of time. But we still live in a world where all the positions of power and corporate positions and wealth, etc., are held by those generations of the parents and of the grandparents that this younger generation is rebelling against. So all of the power structures are trying to move in that woke direction, and the younger generation is coming up saying, we're not having a bar of this. This is a hell of a collision coming our way. We're watching that play out in the US, certainly in the UK with Reform, Germany with AFD, Le Pen in France, and around the world. Look at what's happening in Argentina with Javier Milei and the wonderful libertarian government that he's leading there. We're watching this happen worldwide. How does this play out? Do things have to get worse before they get better?
I've always said I think that's the case. The analogy I use is like when you get a basketball and you take it into a pool, the lower it goes to the bottom, that you force to the bottom, the higher it shoots up when it comes up. And that's the thing. There are powerful things, more powerful than the government in this world. That is biology, that is psychology, that is spirituality. And the government, as much as they try to put this basketball underneath the water, it's going to pop up in ways that we do not even expect. And so we are seeing that in the UK. Nigel Farage is set to be the Prime Minister in the next few years. And we are starting to see that polling take place with Senator Pauline Hanson. Yeah. Again, I don't know why, we're seeing this in Australia now. I don't know exactly what's happening, but I think we're seeing this happen with taxes. We're seeing this with education. We're seeing with every single level of government in people's lives, in their workforce, in every industry. And people have had enough. And unfortunately, it's not easy to reverse that. And I think that's where the cynicism with the parties is going with these polls.
Yeah. I want to come back to Australia, and this bill has now been split, like you said, the speech and the hate group side of it, as well as the guns side of it. Sticking with guns for just a moment. Sadly,
my perspective on the Gen Z, just before we get into the next segment, on the one thing that shits me about these kind of I want to call them center right people. I don't think they're like full right wing. You guys might call them like full right wing, maybe. Anyway, it's just like right leaning. Let's just say right leaning. Is they have this perception on the woke agenda, and like I can understand when they say like, you know, the LGBTQ plus, you know, sort of movement in like, you know, office spaces. And I think like, you know, the pronouns, like, yeah, there is some stuff, but like social media really pushes that sort of stuff in Australia. Like I had not, like I used to live in Adelaide. Now, then I lived in Brisbane. Then I lived in Sunny Coast. Now I live on Gold Coast. And I have probably like, I would say maybe like 1 to 2% of my time on this earth have I even engaged one-on-one with, you know, that kind of crowd, right? And one of my exes, she loved like the drag queen sort of stuff, right? And even going out to them, it's not crazy. It's not the way that these people sort of portray it. I did a like even when you look at where I'm gonna bring it over here, right? So how many transgender people are there in Australia? Like even when you look at the statistics, like approximately 180,000 Australians aged 16 and over. So about, you know, 1% of the adult population are estimated to be transgender and gender diverse. According, that's 1% of like whatever it is, like 28 million or whatever. Like, I mean, that should tell you what. Like, it's just. It is so fractionally small, yet these people use it as one of like their main talking points behind like their whole like political, like they assume like this massive push on like, you know, Gen Z or like millennials or like these younger voters, and they use this like let's be charitable and let's say 2% to like sort of like, instead of like hang on, how many Australians I don't know how to write this, but declared as homosexual or bisexual. I don't even know why this would even. I'm just trying to be a little charitable. See, 16 and over. It's funny how they use the age of 16 here, and then the social media ban was 16 and under. But like, you know, just because, you know, 3.6%. So let's say, even including like the gay community, including the trans community, even though like, you know, I would say that they're actually different. But let's just lump them all in together and say like probably your LGBTQ plus is 5% of the population, and that's being charitable, I think. How strong their narrative and their rhetoric is of the left. So these guys that are right, how strong their narrative was on the left being woke and all this sort of stuff is about 5% of the population. And that's being charitable. And then they're associating like the left as like Labor Party, who is the majority, has the majority sort of votes in government. They're in government at the moment. And they think that these people represent the 5% of like, it doesn't line up. And it just annoys me. Like all of this, 5% is a massive voting block, though. Yeah, but I wouldn't say that 5% all vote for Labor either. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, okay, if you want to put it like, if you know, if you look at like maybe like both major parties, let's just say like let's split it down the middle and say that both major parties get like, you know, 35-40% of the votes, and then you get your minor parties. So like, yeah, 5% might end up being like 10 to 20% of their voter block, if all of them vote for Labor, which I don't think that they would. My sort of like line of questioning is more going like the right having this huge sort of like using the trans, the LGBTQ thing, or like as a huge assertion of like younger voters like waking up and being like, oh, we don't want to do this and blah blah, and having this like massive influence. I just don't think it's like, I don't think it's apples to apples is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think like you can assert that like all leftists are down this path, and I don't think that you can basically go like, if you are left leaning, then you support, this sort of like LGBTQ plus, movement and all that sort of thing. Like, I think it's just I think it's nitpicking. And that's 5% being charitable, by the way. So that's sort of like my sort of like question on that, unless like you guys like can see flaws in my thinking there. But I just don't think it's that big of a talking point that it has to be like superimposed on everything to do. Because like what I normally like when these people like talk about wokies and stuff like that, like who are they specifically talking about? Like especially in Parliament, like when they're talking about like wokies in Parliament, like the LGBTQ like sort of people, they don't typically mention too many of them. Like they mention a few, but it's still not that many. I don't think it's that strong of a talking point anymore. Like if you, like that's sort of my argument against it. Like it's just, I don't think it's that big of a deal as what they play it out to be. And then they end up using it as like a very, very strong debate point in a lot of what they talk about. That's where I'm coming from.
It does seem that this is probably a shoo-in. It's very, very likely to pass with the help of the Greens and a handful of the crossbench senators who are on the record as being very, very anti-gun. So unfortunately, at a federal level, we're likely to see that. But a lot of the gun regulations actually done at a state level. We saw New South Wales reconvene before Christmas and ram through some new restrictions on gun owners, including a limit of 4 guns per licence holder, which seems mad because the people who actually carried out the attack at Bondi used 4 guns. So this would literally have made no difference whatsoever to their plans. We've just seen Queensland come out, and Queensland have previously been a state that's been better than most on this front. They've just come out saying that they're going to go hard and introduce something. We don't know what that looks like yet. Obviously, the federal government are funding this buyback, but at the same time, shooters are getting more vocal. They're getting sick of this. And we are seeing more politicians, to their credit, some Nationals politicians, as well as One Nation and a number of others, who are really quite boldly, Bob Catter and others, boldly coming out in defence of shooters. And this defence of shooters is becoming more mainstream than I think it's been in my lifetime. Where do you think this goes?
Well, there's something powerful to be said about Australians and their love of farmers. The reason why the Anzacs were so bold, so powerful, and so resilient compared to some of the other troops in the world is they were from farms. That's why they were so resilient. And so anyone that's spent any time outside of the city knows you need easy access to guns because there are things out there that want to kill you. There's pest control. And sometimes you need high caliber weapons. You do actually need an ability to take out. Sometimes you even need automatic weapons, believe it or not. Forgive me saying.
All right. Needless says it's slop, easy to win because, 100%. It is. Like, I feel like the transgender, like all the LGBTQ stuff, like all that sort of stuff, I think it is an easy rage bait to get people like, like the what is a woman question, the like teaching transgender stuff in like school and stuff like that. Like, it's a very easy rev up stuff. Like, I do think that there's some that have crossed the line before, but like, it's an easy rev up, and I think it is, coincided with how the Americans sort of jumped off it. Lisa Mason, there are more than what we think. They are hiding, and what, like, you can say that, but when we did the stats before, I think that we when we looked here, I thought we were being quite charitable with how we added up to 5%. We had we had less than 1% for transgender, and then 3.6 for gay, bisexual, and then we rounded up to 5%, which I think that would cover. And even 5% is being charitable. And I think even then, even if you were to go like 5 to 6%, I think there's the same sort of, thing it sticks. Predicted the New Year's Eve, Alex Jones would come out as a fairy. Oh, man. Alex Jones is unhinged. Imagine if we had an Alex Jones in Australia. That would be that would be quite comical. Yeah.
If you got a bunch of wild boars running around,
Correct.
sorry, but
Correct.
I'm gonna chuck a poll in the chat regarding gun reform. I understand that, like, I understand like the whole gun reform thing with like regional, like maybe they do need like high caliber depending on the animals they're shooting. They might need more rounds. They might need like quick action or, stuff like that, because if they're shooting one thing, they might need to shoot it a few times. Like, I wonder if there's a better way to do this reform in terms of like, depending on the density of your suburb or something like that, then maybe you can't have such like high caliber reforms or something like that. Like, I don't know. I looked at like what was it? It's like 4 million guns in Australia. Like, these are registered guns. There's 4 million guns and then like 1 million registered owners. So that's how they got the like 4 guns per person, or 4 to 5 guns per person rule, like down from like, whatever it is. Like, I don't know if you guys are like gun people or, pardon me, I don't know if you guys are gun people or something, but like, I think when you look at the statistics in terms of like, comparing to France, comparing to US, comparing to UK, comparing to like New Zealand, stuff like that, like we do pretty good in terms of like gun injuries and gun deaths, and that's due to our gun laws. Guns for like sports and guns for what do they call it? They call it like priority or like preference shoot. I don't know, like farmers and stuff like that who pretty much need them. I think they should tackle it a bit better. Like when you say that the law is pointless and that's the problem, do you mean that like the law is pointless as in there shouldn't be one at all and it should just be kept as it is? Or do you mean like there needs to be like it's not going far enough? Because I do think the type of guns, like I don't think you should be able to have like a pump action or like I don't know what they're called. So anyone who's watching that's like a gun nut can correct me here, but like you shouldn't be able to like shoot, bang bang, shoot, bang bang. Like the bang bang's reloading. Like bang shoot, bang shoot, bang shoot. Like I don't think you should be able to have those guns in a city, if that makes sense. Don't want it too hard. Of course, it's down to the wrong. Yeah. Like I think this is what we were talking about before about like Labor's trying to address it as the method and the motivation. I do think, okay. Like I do agree. Fuck, I'm switching stance here. Like I do I'm like 80%, like I do agree that the way that we're sort of like dealing with our laws at the moment, I think changing gun laws at the moment probably isn't the most important thing. I think the hate speech side of things, I think the motivation is such a it's probably like 80 to 90% of the real problem. I think the gun laws are bringing to surface maybe some investigations that might help in the future. I think like these laws, my understanding of like the Albanese government and what they're trying to do behind all of this is preventative changes, right? So they want to make sure, like when the Bondi happened, the number one thing that they focused on was a week later, nothing was going to happen in Melbourne, nothing was going to happen in Sydney, nothing was going to happen in like Bendigo, wherever city, right? Within like the first month, like 1 to 3 months is like the likely chance of another terrorist attack happening again. And like you sort of saw like when the stuff went down in Bondi, and then the police ended up cracking down very, very like a lot harder on like these terrorist attacks. Did you see how many more like arrests and that happened in the following weeks? And that's because there was like a heightened sensitivity on the topic. Now, I feel like the guns sort of help to sort of identify people in a way. But I do feel like, yeah, I do think you guys are right to a degree that, you know, the guns are a little bit of a, you know, what Lisa says here, waft dam. I don't know what that means. But like, yeah, I think the anti-Semitism stuff is still like 80%, 90% of the problem. But I still do think that the gun laws will actually help them identify who should have them, or it actually might even identify people that should be on the watch list. Because I would imagine that if they're going to start increasing their gun checks, like so people that have registered, you know, firearms, blah 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 blah, they're going to do more thorough checks. They're going to have the register, which I think has actually been going through government. I think the Nats actually tried to introduce it a couple of years ago. Which I'm surprised that, you know, credit to the Nats, because they actually wanted a gun register a couple of years ago. I don't know the full story behind it, but like, you know, if they have like a full register, they're doing more checks, they actually might be able to highlight people with guns who are high risk as well. So instead of being like, you're a high risk person, you can't apply for a gun license. There's also the case where you could have a gun license and you are normal, and then you become a high risk person. So like if someone has like these sort of like high caliber rifles, and then they sort of like go in and check, and then I don't know, say they do like an inspection of their safe at home, and then when they go in to see that safe at home, and they go in and see like, I don't know, let's just go the extreme, and they see like an ISIS flag on the you know, on the roof, half mast, I don't know. But they see that, then that might raise suspicion. Like, so it might kind of be like that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, as you guys sort of say, I do agree. Like, it's kind of like 80 to 90% of the issue. But the fact that they had those guns in the first place, I still think is an issue. What we got here? A waft dam, for those who don't know, is a waste of flaming time and money. All right, I might have to steal that. Gun laws are fine, a little tight, like banning things, yeah. Spaz 12 is too far. So, man, I don't know if any of you guys play like Battlefield, but I don't know if I've seen a spaz on Battlefield, or you got to reference guns on Battlefield, that's for sure. And let's get back to this.
Yeah, and this is the love of farmers here is a completely unselfish reason to actually have this. This is for feeding the cities. And anyone like Barnaby Joyce, Bob Catter, Senator Hanson that spends time in these rural areas, it's obvious to them. Whereas we've got the Greens over here, and they're saying, no, we don't have to kill the boars, you know, save the koalas, this and that. It's like, relax, no one's shooting koalas. This is about pest control.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much more than that. I think a great point was made. I don't recall who made it, unfortunately, but in fact, it might have been David Littleproud, the current leader of the Nationals, who made the point that there's many people in the city who go out shooting in country areas essentially as their hobby, but they're doing the pest control on the behalf of the farmers who are exhausted at the end of a long day, who've got a million other things to think about. And so we need to accept that this is a land that requires management. We have pests that require management, and we need city people to be involved in that management. So we need city people to have access to firearms. Coming across to the hate speech and the hate group side of things, I think the passage of this is much less assured.
Is there like a thing where like, if you've got like a high density, like let's kind of circle back around to like what I was saying before about like, if you have like high density area, then you can't have like certain types of firearms because you're in a high density area. And in lower density areas, like rural areas, you can have like those types of firearms for obvious reasons. is there like do gun shops have like, I don't know, like a safe, or like do gun shops have like a storage unit sort of thing where like they could actually store your guns for you? So like if you lived in like the city, obviously you don't need like a semi-automatic or a shotgun or anything like that in a city. And if you were to go to like rural areas and like basically shoot like cats or foxes or rabbits, those sort of like pest sort of animals, that you can actually go and then access like your guns in like a particular area, then that's monitored. Is that a thing? Because I feel like that would kind of, you know, depending on like who funds that, and you know, I assume that there would be like it'd be like a business there or whatever. But like I'd feel like that would to some degree work, or would it just end up being like in the too hard basket that it's like, people will stop doing it?
But for as long as the Greens hold their ground, if they don't cave, I think the passage of this side of the bill is much less assured. Do you really believe that some Liberal Party members might support this bill even in a world where they're being eaten alive by one nation? Surely that would be a warning to them. Hey, don't go there.
Look, we know as a matter of fact, as reported in the Australian newspaper, that Julian Leeser, the member of parliament in the Liberals, he's a Jewish member of parliament for the Liberals, he left the front bench in opposition to the Liberal Party position. They were supporting, opposition to the Voice. He supports the Voice. This guy, he shouldn't be in the Liberals. He is trying to get votes over the weekend for Labor's omnibus bill, let alone the watered down version. Like this is the people that are in the Liberals. I think people have failed to understand how far the Liberals have actually fallen here. There are Liberal senators that will vote for this bill, and this is why we made the tool. But no, this particular bill, all that they took out was Part 5 of Schedule 1, which is 2% of the bill. That's the racial vilification offence. The prohibited hate groups is still in there, and that's partly why the Greens definitely won't support it, because that would bring a lot of their constituent voters, some Islamic groups, under the banner. So I'm pretty firm on the Greens. But yeah, look, strange time. So tomorrow morning, just so you know, Topher, because this is nuts, we don't have the bills yet, the split bills, the updated ones.
Wow.
No. This is me reading in between the lines, and it's being confirmed every interview by Labor ministers. It gets introduced tomorrow morning, these two bills, and it has to be all voted and done in the House and Senate by 10 p.m. tomorrow night.
Honestly, I don't care even if you're a supporter of these bills. Any politician that approves of that process and rubber stamps that by waving this bill through deserves to be thrown out at the next election. They have no respect whatsoever for the Australian people. If we don't even get to see it, to comment on it, to give feedback on it, there's no inquiries, there's no comment period. By definition, if they're introducing it in the morning and trying to have it voted on by 10 p.m., that is so disrespectful. I'm reaching for a word far harsher than disrespectful, but I'll stick with that one because we're on the internet. You go.
By the way, Topher, let's not forget, 7,000 people, they knew this as of Saturday. 7,000 people sent in submissions. They don't have the time to go through the submissions, let alone the top 120, by tomorrow. It's like, why did we bother?
It is disgusting.
And they overwhelmingly oppose the bill. Overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
I think that, unfortunately, that is like the strongest argument against all this is the speed, which and it is warranted. But I did like when you go have previous governments pushed legislation through Parliament as fast as the current proposed hate speech bill today. I think it's called like guillotining or like a gag, but it's quite I wouldn't say it's common, but it's actually like it's a tactic used in government. Like I read about it in I forgot what book, but they typically do it, and it's not. I wish I should bring it up on stream one day, but yeah. So let's read this. So several previous Australian governments have pushed legislation through Parliament as fast as, and seen in some cases even faster than, the combating extremism bill. While the current hate speech laws were introduced and passed within a 2-day sitting, historical data shows that same-day passage is rare and well documented for urgent matters. Like this is the like sort of thing that I go on about with when the Bondi shooting happened. You had so much pressure from the public regarding the Royal Commission. You had so much pressure from the Jewish community for anti-Semitism to be addressed. You had the coalition, like you had Susan Ley basically screaming about how like Albanese isn't doing enough and there needs to change the hate speech laws. And you had like celebrities, you had like these businessmen, you had like foreign leaders like talking about it. Like you had like all this pressure. And, like, just remember, this only happened like 5 to 6 weeks ago. This is the first time it's happened in Australia, and I'm not trying to like give any sort of like grace to, or like, you know, try and like downplay it, but we haven't got in Australia historic sort of examples on how to deal with this sort of stuff. Like, this is the first of its kind in exercising in this type of government in this day and age. So I think that those sort of things have to be a little bit considered, like, you know, just like a small portion. It's like same with like the stuff happened with COVID. Like, it's never sort of really been dealt with, and we came out of COVID pretty good here in Australia, I would say. Immigration obviously took a hit, and housing has like just gone nuts. But like in the grand scheme of things, like, you know, everything didn't fall off the planet of the earth. We didn't end up all possessed and under government control due to the 5G towers. And Bill Gates isn't our daddy. So I feel like when we look at these sort of things, we kind of, I feel like history, we do have to sort of like look back in history and sort of see like these sort of bills, when we look at like urgent matters, these are the sort of processes. And I think that's why like Albanese looked to the Port, like what happened in Port Arthur, and kind of followed the same sort of process. Yet I just don't think that he, like, it wasn't as a one-on-one fit that he maybe thought it was going to be. I think there was like the power of the public was a lot stronger, and the power of the Jewish community was a lot stronger. And I think it's just different times. But like when it comes to urgent matters, I think we should, this sort of like data here, or like this sort of like, you know, stuff here, I think is quite important. And, you know, these, before anyone sort of says like, oh, he's just using Google AI, yeah, just look at the references too. Like, this is coming from, you know, these resources are actually credible resources from the government websites too. But, you know, also take these as a grain of salt. Comparative legislation speed, hate speech bill. So that's the sort of one we're talking about. The Home Affairs bill. So again, this is under the Labor government. Holds a record for speed, passing both houses in 1 hour and 15 minutes and receiving a royal assent within 7.5 hours of introduction. What the fuck does royal assent mean? Royal assent, Australian Parliament meaning. Royal assent is the final step where the Governor General formally signs a bill that is passed. Okay, cool. So it's just the yeah, okay. Yeah, right. So it is quick. So within, you know, the space of 8 hours, a bill went straight through, signed, boom. COVID-19. Right, so this is the Morrison government. During the pandemic, the Morrison government passed 11 bills in a single day to implement economic relief. Marriage laws, postal survey. 2017, who was that? That was Turnbull, wasn't it? Passed both houses and received royal assent on the same day. The Strawberries bill, legislation responding to the strawberry needle contamination crisis, was debated. Again, I think that was Turnbull. Energy price relief, that was Labor. There you go. So this is like in like the, you know, last 10 years. So like when they talk about like the bill being passed very, very quickly, it's not uncommon in urgent matters. And I think when we watched that clip from like Isaac Butterfield, or whatever his name was, when he says like, oh, once this legislation, then it's all done and dusted. Like they can make amendments, they can do like not sunset clauses, but like sunset tests where like, and I saw that today, like a lot of like electorates basically came out and said, hey, we support the bill. However, we think we should make an amendment where it's like revisited in 2 years, 1 year post like Royal Commission, or 2 years past like testing and stuff like that. Like I agree with all that sort of stuff. Like I think with a bill being passed as quickly, and I think it will actually get addressed as well. Elite just does what they want, and then the punter has to decide which team screws him. Yeah. I think there's an element of truth to that, 100%. So the whole speed of it going through, like, I can agree that it's very, very quick, but it's just this isn't uncommon by either party. And like you said, the public do kind of get screwed by it. But there was a lot of public submissions for the omnibus bill, which, even though they split it up, it kind of still did apply. They didn't change it drastically. I think it was very, very minor changes when they split up like the gun reform and the hate speech parts, and then they actually got rid of the vilification part of it. So, one of my main criticisms is the quickness. But I also was opposed to how much pressure there was at the start as well. So I feel like if you were pro-pressure, pro-Royal Commission, you were pro-changing hate speech laws and pro all that sort of stuff at the start, and then you're complaining about the speed, I kind of feel like, hey, you kind of like created the issue. But if you kind of looked at the start and be like, okay, cool, like, let's take our time, and we'll not take our time, but like, let's do things properly and make sure that we don't, do some things that we can't undo later on, then I think you kind of have a bit more ground to stand on if you go to say, hey, like, it should, we should slow things down in terms of, passing through Parliament. I think that's pretty fair.
Of contempt being demonstrated now by our Parliament towards the people that they supposedly serve. I think it's just naked contempt. They're not even hiding it.
It's an absolute power grab. And you know what it is, man? Look at the polling. It tells you everything you need to know. They are shaking in their boots. 53% of this country support Liberal or Labor. That means 47% don't. This bill will ensure that those two parties, what we call the uni party, stays in power. They're going to go after people like Topher. They're going to go after people like me. They're going to list organisations like Turning Point Australia's hate groups. They're going to go after our donors. They're going to go after everyone, anyone that's signing up a member, anyone that's a coordinator. This, and we're moderate. Like, we're pretty chill.
Oh, fuck me. I think, who did I watch? I watched, I don't know if you guys watched, what's his name? Two Worlds Collide. And who do you have on? Who's like the big Chocky? I did a clip on Chocky on the Two Worlds Collide, and they were talking about like they've gotten like messages from fans of like cops knocking on their doors, being like, "Hey, I saw that you shared an Instagram reel from like the Two Worlds Collide podcast. Like, what are you doing sharing those reels?" I swear these people think, and I just haven't seen any cases. Like, if you guys know of any cases where like these types of like political commentary sort of people have like been harassed by cops or been like approached to like slow down their rhetoric and stuff like that, like I don't think that like they think that the police is after them, or like the government is after them to try and silence them and stuff like that. Like, like is it true? Like, am I just like naive around it? Like, do I just not know? But am I oblivious to this stuff? But like, are these people actually getting approached by the government, by state police or the federal police? Are they actually being like investigated around the rhetoric that they sort of share, like because they're anti-Labor or just anti-government period? Like, is that a thing? Because they say it all the time. like this dude just said it then, like they're being targeted.
A coordinator. This, and we're moderate. Like we're pretty chill. So this is the problem here. You know, these are our fellow Australians. Like, what happened to us? It's and it's like, yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks, Albo.
All right, before we sign off, Joel, you've mentioned that you've made a tool there that people can use to potentially help out. How do people find you, Turning Point Australia, and what have you done to try and help in this moment?
Yeah, so last night at 11 p.m. when I was coming to this realization, what they'd done, we worked through the night to make a mass emailing tool. So this will email in the Senate the Greens, the crossbenchers, and the Liberals, especially the ones that we think may cross the floor. 8 weeks in the party. So they were going to throw it on the Monday, but because we did that, so these things can happen, they can work. But Topher, God bless you. Thank you so much. And if you guys are listening, please.
Yeah. All right. I don't think it's legal to talk about that sphere anymore. It's yeah. I don't know. Like, there's nothing more annoying when like these types of like right-leaning commentators are like, oh yeah, you know, we're being silenced and our freedom of speech and yada yada. But yet, like, they've been like, you go back like to COVID times, what they were talking about, they were saying the exact same thing. They say like all the time that they're being silenced, they're being targeted, and then you like looked at like, check out like Topher's got like 126,000 subscribers. If he was being silenced, he wouldn't have any, like he'd be blocked. He wouldn't be able to make this, he wouldn't be able to have like a title like "Don't Believe the Spin." Albo's hate speech bill is so bad, like is as bad as ever. Like if he was being silenced, wouldn't you think that would be blocked? Like same with like this dude here, like Australia's woke free speech laws are here. Like you wouldn't be allowed to have those things if you really like. It's the same with what did it say his name was? Two Worlds Collide. You know, Australia's agenda, you know, that breaks down the extremist bill, free speech. Like, they wouldn't be able to have, like, this is the one I did a thing on, but like, they wouldn't be able to release this stuff if they were really being targeted by like the Labor government not to.
This whole bill is a piece of crap.
Not to have this sort of stuff. Like, man, I see so much unhinged stuff on X. I see so much unhinged stuff on like TikTok. Even the shorts, there's so much of it. I don't know why they keep saying that they're being. I feel like that kind of gets the audience going. And then you read the comments like, yeah, they're trying to impinge on our free speech and blah blah blah. It's like, mate, what are you saying that you shouldn't be saying?